You can want to fight for your country because you love it and you're a patriot, because you remember a time when it was better. But when the structure that you are fighting is so monolithic that even when you make strides, when you make improvements, when you make traction, and then you literally end up taking 10 steps back after taking 1 step forward. That's the kind of stuff that can get a person throwing in the towel on their nation and try to leave. If, however, they can't leave, they will end up killing themselves. You cannot live in an in Afghanistan when the Taliban was reignited because of what Joe Biden did. Properly, the American forces had created so much liberation to Afghanistan that women were able to study, that Christianity was allowed to thrive largely, that etc. Next thing, the body of Christ there was facing beheading, martyrdom, and women were kicked out of universities. The boys in Afghanistan out here rioted on behalf of women on some let the women finish their degrees, let them study. But the Taliban was like, no, over our dead body, because women are not supposed to study. They were out here trying to bring back laws that frankly people had already been set free from. And so what do you do as a woman that is in second year med school, all of a sudden being told by the Taliban that you can't study? Do you just take that in your stride, or do you try to leave your country? You will leave to try and finish your med degree in another nation, right? But if they then want to hold you hostage in your country, in Afghanistan, if they want to hold you hostage in Afghanistan and marry you off to some Taliban trainee, marry you off to some man that believes that you should perpetually be wearing a hijab, that you are frankly ill-disciplined to even know how to read, and that your core purpose is to just merely cook, be barefoot, pregnant, and lay under a man that you don't love, but he chose you. Because that's the thing with men, they don't care about reciprocity. It's about ownership instead of any real reciprocity in a marriage. Here it is that a man is out here choosing you for a wife, and you just gotta take it in your stride alongside and not be able to study ever. You would kill yourself. If you cannot live, if you can't leave, you would end up dying. I don't know how many times I have asked the Lord to leave South Africa, because there is a spirit in this country that is in operation that is just taking away the lives of women that grew up in a different regime, who were happy, who were at peace, who were tranquil with what they were doing, and now they're being forced to marry ridiculous men that don't make sense and also sit at home and do nothing, but without it being as brazen, as bold-faced. Because if they were to be brazen and bold-faced like the Taliban are, you're creating an entire edict, making it law, writing it into legislation, South Africa would not be able to stand against international scrutiny. It will not be able to stand against international courts, and frankly, they would not be able to stand against South Africans, because the country is apparently too much of a democracy. And this is where the new apartheid regime, created under a misogynistic umbrella, commenced. It uses magic. Like I said earlier, I was shocked out of my mind. When I lost everything in 2014, to learn of just how much men harbored a particular sentiment, black men, I was shocked out of my mind to see that they're out here thinking like Shaka Zulu. They think it's 1807. I was shocked out of my mind to watch my male friends refuse to help me with basic stuff, with them telling me, just go back to your mother's house, you'll figure your way out. I was shocked out of my mind to see how forceful pursuit of my person became once I lost a job. I stopped being asked out, and if I said no, the guy would move on, leave me alone, or maybe even still be kind to me. even though he's still bumpering. This time around, I was forced. This time around, I was looked at like, how dare you say no to me? This time around, I was treated with so much hostility for rejecting a man that I literally faced death. Death. And no, this did not just happen to me only. I told you, when this whole epidemic of crazy commenced in the country, or at least when I walked straight into the line of fire of it, when I went into the bush that was burning of it, when I entered into this inferno, I got shocked out of my mind to find out just how complacent women are in the midst of something as serious as this, and also just how many women are in it too. I got shocked out of my mind to discover just how many women were also in this situation. The level of coercion that came from, like, you know, women being forced to be with men and women being forced to do things that they didn't want to do. That's stuff that I only saw in very ghetto, like extremely ghetto cases where in the Kasi, a girl is out here dating a gangster. And so every so often, she has her hair pulled, her singles pulled, yanked, leaving a bald patch the size of a 5 rand coin on her head. And the next weekend, she's out here jollering with the guy again, dancing, clubbing, partying with the guy again. The same guy that put that kind of scar on her. She's back at it again, dating him the next week. I only ever saw that kind of ridiculousness in women to take that much rubbish in their stride. I only ever saw it in the Gassies. I only ever saw it in the ghetto. I only ever saw it amidst really super uncultured men and women, like hood rats, like really street women and really street men were the ones that were in such turbulent, tumultuous relationships where were getting slapped, getting beaten, getting hit, getting your body dragged through traffic by a guy literally holstering you, pulling you while people are just watching on some. I'm not going to intervene, this guy's too dangerous. It was only really ghetto women with really ghetto guys that traveled with weaponry, like guys that carried guns, guys that carried knives, guys with gold teeth, guys that were known as being amakenza, guys abapandayo that don't have proper jobs. They were the ones that did that to women, and the girls that dated them were always these hood rat chicks that don't have jobs as well. They are also ghetto as ghetto can get, and they need these guys. They don't have their own thing. And they've also got irresponsible parents who, in and of themselves, in and of herself is always busy with abu madlisa that are older. It's just a circus in the house of women. So the men that come by your check out these women, violent. I only ever saw that rubbish there at a distance in all these other ghetto ungentrified people. But I was a snob, you see. I was gentrified. I had a twang. I was a Model C. So the guys that I hung out with, they were gentrified too. The guys that we hung out with were also little snobs that would never hit a girl, that would never rape a woman, that would never wada. You get my point. So I never got to experience the PTSD of a super ghetto chick, where you're always getting slapped and next week you're with him again at the club. I never got to see that. Until I became so poor that even gentrified guys became just like Ustamaronza Loa Sekasi that pulls a woman ga robu from Budiachach to the Kasi, showing everybody that this is what happens when a woman crosses me. I found out that white collar guys with their fitted suits and their cologne aftershave, their 9-to-5 jobs, their Model C twang. I found out Utinabo they can be just as tactless as Ustamarons. I found out that guys that are working with me, that I study with at varsity, can also be those monsters. I thought it was just a problem for ghetto chicks, because all they have for an option are ghetto guys that can't get no job, that have to rely on crime to eat bread. But when dudes out here working a regular 9 to 5, working an honest living, that have been taught the constitution of the country in life orientation at school, guidance, that's what they used to call it when I was on the come up. I never thought that guys like these would do stuff like this, and yet they did. I am being afflicted right now, not so much by these ghetto baboons. The guy in America is one of those. I came to learn that he's a typical ghetto dude that outklappers women. Like it's easy for him to do that. Type of dude to just easily rape a woman. Like it just comes, like it's easy for him to do it. Doesn't think twice, and he just goes in for the kill because he feels like a woman had it coming. How dare you say no to me? Yeah, the dude in the US is like that. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But I was put in a position to eventually literally have a conversation, respond to a direct message, talk with a person like that by people that ought not have left me to be in these shoes. Men that were supposed to do better by me. Women that were supposed to do better by me. In a particular space, doing a particular thing. We got used to a particular lifestyle. And then these people left me to suffer at the mercy of Makinza. And I, for the life of me, am still suffering from post-traumatic stress as a result of being pursued by Amakinza that I didn't even know were that, because properly when you're suffering as a woman, anything I was shocked out of my mind to discover that women now too were in on this. Like, not only were gentrified dudes that I used to work with, go to school with, that I was on the come up with, that I hung out with, not only were they revealed as harboring horrible sentiment to a point of forcing women to be with them basabatli, of hitting women, killing women. Not only did I see this in dudes that were my peers, and never mind my peers, sorry, but like my league, let's call it league. The dudes that were in my league, when they did this, I was like, whoa. Okay, it turns out that they've never changed, but the biggest shock of my life was when women helped them. I saw it, the stuff that happened around me from like 2014. When I lost my job, I saw flames, okay? I saw disturbing scenes, like a carnage, a car accident where you are seeing body parts on the floor as you drive by. I saw that kind of stuff, and it has just left such a bad taste in my mouth, such that for the next coming years, I would thoroughly try to fight it, only to be blocked from being heard by men and women, until I got to a point where I was like, God, please take me out of South Africa, because war is running in these streets. It is not a safe country anymore. It's the Ukraine that's been declared war on by Russia, so just go next door. Go to the nearest country. Go to Poland. It is a breakout of war in your backyard. So make like a refugee and go to another country until it simmers down. Because you see, the thing about a war, when it breaks out in your backyard, where yesterday it was fine, it was peaceful. Can I afford to let go of this ice pack now? Because I think it's cool enough now. Because it's causing instability. The thing about war is that it catches people in the middle of life. And now, the thing about war is that it catches people in the middle of life. And because it catches them in the middle of life, they now have to stop life. It's unfortunate. Students have to stop studying. People have to stop going to work every day because it's no longer safe in the streets. They are then displaced sometimes and made to live in foreign countries or foreign villages, moving from pillar to post. So life as they knew it is gone. That's the nature of war. War has been declared on South Africa and people are in denial. Because look at my life. I was like a Ukrainian kid, a Ukrainian woman, a Ukrainian man, a Ukrainian anything. That one day was going to work, coming back from work, going to university, coming back from university, going to school, coming back from school. And then Putin invaded. And next thing I'm at the border of Poland, trying to flee as a refugee. But those that stay, they're facing constant shelling. They're facing imminent death. They're facing nothingness. Kindergartens are empty. Primary schools are empty. High schools are empty. And wherever there's still education happening, there's a risk that you're going to have to pack your bags and go and study under a different tree. That's the nature of war. It stops life dead in its tracks. It grabs a med student and makes them a matriculant. Someone that would have been a doctor in the future, once this war is over, after 5 years in the country, this individual will be nothing but a school leaver, perhaps maybe a waitress at a restaurant, but they were supposed to be a doctor, they were supposed to be a surgeon. That is what war does to people. And so anybody that does not believe that war has been declared on women in South Africa is in denial. Because I am in, literally my whole life is the life of a war-ravaged person, a civilian that has had to live a significantly different life from the one that she had before war broke out in her backyard. I had to drop out of school. I had to lose a job. I don't have proper family. Everything around me is dead. I can't work the kind of job that makes sense for my skill set. I am literally being vied for to go and scan groceries at the Pick and Pay, fold clothes at the Woolies, sweep streets, clean houses. My own family treats me like a domestic worker. This is the kind of stuff that happens to a person only because of war. And yet, people are looking at me like this is not what's giving. Another thing about war is that there are a lot more casualties, a lot more people die. The mortality rate of a country skyrockets because of war. So, the number of women that have been dying in South Africa since this gender-based violence under black men in particular has been declared on us has skyrocketed. Our mortality rate has skyrocketed. Our futures are no longer guaranteed. And perfectly viable women are finding themselves in marriages with psychopaths that don't make sense, or accepting the statuses of being dinyatsi when they would never have done that, or embracing in their stride isitembu when they would never have ever accommodated polygamy, or embracing in their stride knowing someone or two someones or three someones that were killed by boyfriends, slapped by husbands. Proper. South Africa is literally called the worst country to live in as a woman. Those stats would never be happy to admit that. Rather, it's the worst country to live in as a black woman. They don't want to make it about race, but it properly is about race. It is about race because there is no other single demographic of women in this country that is suffering the way that the black woman is. Only go and watch TikTok and every second, third video being shared by black women in this country, and you will hear of this common grain of ukuhlanga that is just not being resonated by colored women, Indian women, white women in the country. Literally nobody else is going through it. Yes, indeed. There are white women that are dying at the hands of their men, like Oscar Pistorius killed Reeva Steenkamp. But that is the exception to the norm. The norm is that the majority of these women that are going in the ground under gender-based violence are black. And the men who are killing them are also black. It's a black issue. They just don't want to represent that in the statistics. They don't want to say that South Africa is the worst country to live in as a black woman. So they just ubiquitously blanket it and say as a woman. No, it's us that are suffering the most. Our race literally has everything to do with it. We are being killed. And so, I mean, when war has been declared on your demographic, your gender, I mean, if you want to finish your degree that you started at a Ukrainian university, you have got to leave the country and reapply to finish your medical degree in a Polish university. You have to reapply to finish your degree in a South African university if you come back home. In the Ukraine, there was, when the war broke out there was these two South African students that were med students that were being interviewed by news networks. I don't know what those women are doing today, but chances are they have reapplied to finish their med degrees. They're probably still finishing their degrees, but they're finishing them maybe at UCT or at WITS. They could not finish their med degrees in the Ukraine. They couldn't. So absent of a person fleeing the country to live a normal life, they will inevitably endure that which is a war life. If you stay in the country, you gotta accept that you will never be an accountant, even though that's what you were studying at varsity. You will never be a consultant, even though that's what you were planning on doing. You will never be a mom. That's the thing about war. Ain't nobody out here getting married, nobody out here having children. Your plans just get completely ruined. And because wars tend to linger for as many years as they linger, sometimes irrecoverably are the people put in a situation that they did not sign up for. Absent of leaving that region, you will not be able to live. Unless you leave the Ukraine and finish your med degree in South Africa where there is no war, you are not going to live. You are not going to be okay. There's going to be constant shelling. All your med textbooks are going, your medical school textbooks are going to gather dust. They're going to be a distant memory that's very painful. The only people that are still able to carry on with life as normal when a war breaks out are those who flee to the next country. Those who flee to other countries. Look at Miriam Makeba. When the war of apartheid broke out in South Africa, uhambile wayenza icareer yakhe, her music career, in the US. She left South Africa and got exiled in the US, stayed there for a couple of years, and then came back only after apartheid was actually being repealed. When your nation is at war, when your nation is ridiculous, I'm sorry, absent of you leaving that country, you will either have to do one of two things. Be a war hero and try to recover your own country, or be one of those people that are always running from pillar to post, ducking, hiding, until whatever gives. My grandmother was a ducker and a hider, while everybody else was while basically braver men and braver women were fighting for the country. Well, when the war got declared on me in 2014, I fought. I chose to fight. I didn't duck. I didn't hide. I didn't settle. I didn't accept men like that. I didn't sleep with a guy to get a job because there's no other way out of it. I chose to fight. And now after 10 years, when it appeared as if when it is looked like proper, after 10 years, when I am finally happening upon social media content of women like me speaking and resonating a similar story, I'm thinking there is no way that in South Africa there can be so many women crying about the same thing and there not be anything getting done about it. There is no way that there is no intervening God. There is absolutely no way that nobody's coming for us. This here is not maintainable, because the way that you overwhelm a monolith is by rioting, is by fighting, it's by pushing back. When I discovered, especially on TikTok, that I'm not alone with all of these women speaking out, I realized, maybe there's hope. Perhaps maybe South Africa can live, because Abafazi are waking up to smell the coffee. But you see, that's just the thing. I'm in this dichotomy, this dilemma. I'm in it because women have put me in a position to suffer under these men. But you see, the thing that I'm experiencing, the reason why I declared war with it, remember, I was shocked, I was surprised. When I lost everything, I was surprised at the way that my own friends and family treated me, men that I was good peoples with, the way that they reacted to my case, treated me. I was shocked, but with that shock came prophecy. With that shock came a God that I serve, that showed me the reason why basadi are leaving you to die, why men who harbored certain sentiments are now doing nothing about you. I started to get a cornucopia of dreams. I started to get a whole bunch of dreams where I was shown what's going on. Not only did I get bewitched by a whole bunch of women tripping me up in my career competing, But I kept dreaming about very perverted little men that insisted on marrying me because that's apparently the only way that I'm gonna get out of this. One dream, I was in a wheelchair and a man was pushing me in it, saying to me, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't at least have this job. But he was wheeling me to the job. And when I woke up from that, I was like, what in the world does this even mean? The Lord would then continue to ramp up, and I would then see women who are taking out the fact that this was done to them on me by putting me in the ground. A lot of the women that are doing this to me are doing it to me because it was done to them. It is a reaction. They were done dirty. They were made to sleep with men to get ahead, even though they were perfectly qualified, perfectly skilled, and yet they were made to sleep with men. They were made to live with HIV after contracting it from husbands. They were made to be just mere single parents and baby mamas of guys that had promised to marry them, but they didn't marry them after they put babies in their stomachs. They were made. So many women were made to do things they didn't want to do by guys that made promises that they didn't keep. And so because of the way that they endured rubbish under these men, these women then made a decision to endure me through what they went through, in a spirit of, I'm not going to be in this alone. That then accounted for why women stood back and did nothing after I lost everything. Women including my own mother, women including my own sisters, women including my own female family members, women including best friends, women that I used to be very close with who now today are standing back waiting to attend my funeral because they've told themselves that they would rather I die than me be the one annoying, pesky little thing that does not get obliterated by war criminals, otherwise known as black men. A huge chunk of them. Bazitshele ukuthi we have all been raped by war criminals, so Karabo, you're not going to be the only one that gets out of here scot-free. You're not going to be the only one that walks around here without having to pop ARVs every day. You're not going to be the only one that walks around here without raising a child by yourself, albeit having been promised big things by the baby daddy at some point. You're not going to be the only one walking around here with a husband that's doting over you, that's not cheating on you. You're not going to be the only one that's not going to get her husband rocking up and telling you that he wants a second wife, a third and a fourth and whatever. You're not going to be the only one that is going to laugh at you when you are throwing your toys out the cot because your husband is cheating on you with her, because your husband clearly favors her over you and then tells you, take it or leave it. You're not going to be the only one. I discovered that women are doing this to me because they're reacting. At which point I then was like, naked Ray once had this thing, but the fight got so terrible, the situation in the country got so whack, that I realized that this is a monolith, there's a war, and everybody I am being killed by my own skin tone. If only I was several shades lighter with my hair less coily, I might have a better life if I was at least colored. Give me mixed, I'd have a better life. All I would need is for my blood to be mixed a little bit with white blood. Give me colored, move into one rung up. Then in that way, I don't have to endure the tyranny of the black community. My skin color is the reason why I cannot escape the grain of crazy, because black people rip each other apart because black people rip each other apart. Black people rip each other apart because black people rip each other apart. They rip each other apart because they've been ripped apart. And they will rip you apart purely because you're black. Any witch looking at me today can vouch for what I'm saying. They know that a good 90 to 95% of their victims are fellow blacks. You could be in competition with white Cassandra in the office for the same job, and yet you will be witch Ulerato fast before you will go for Cassandra, fast before you will go for Samantha, fast before you will go for Candace. I have been bewitched by white people, by colored people, by Indians. But the grand majority, 75 to 80% of the people that have devastated my life have been black. 75% of the people that have done this to me, it's black people. So the majority of their victims are black. And the sad thing about it as well is that sometimes you're a complete stranger to them. They don't know you. They will meet you in the clubhouse, and after a day of chatting with them about snags in your apartment, they will be with you. And I say that because it happened to me once. Some chick I met in a clubhouse in one of the complexes where I stayed. I'm lawyer after just knowing me for one day. If I was an Indian fellow resident in that complex, she wouldn't have come at me. If I was a white fellow resident, she wouldn't have come at me. She wouldn't have come at me if I was colored. She wouldn't have come at me if I was Chinese, anything. But just because I was another black person, she just saw it fit to put it within her prerogative to ruin me, to destroy me. Asangtse. It is a circus, and it is happening only among black people. It is a crisis, and it's killing everybody. It's killing people. It is spiking up the suicide rate in the black community. We were among the most strongest demographics. When it came to depression, we took it like men. Not anymore. Black kids are dying from suicide. Black women, black men, because who does not kill themselves when they're living a life like mine? Who? My life has not been left to rot like this by whites. I might have been sabotaged by a cornucopia of people. The colleagues that pulled the rug from underneath my feet at MTN were a rainbow nation. It was a plethora of different races. The person who initiated the indiscretion against my life was an Indian woman. I then had Indian colleagues, coloreds, white people, white colleagues of all different races, shapes, sizes that contributed to me getting fired without cause. But those who kept me unemployed, those who made sure I never rise, and those who tried to ascertain that I sit in the house of a worthless man have all been black. It's been black women that have insisted that despite me warning that I am in danger, nonetheless insisted that I go and I take a worthless man in my stride. Nyangenga guys, mina, if I pass away, don't you freaking come to my funeral, Lankut. Because I keep on getting harassed, clobbered, like no man's business by men I am time and time again saying, and women are leaving me to suffer. Women are trying to shove me to these men, and fast and furious before I will take anything of that nature, I will die. And they keep going back to the drawing board, trying again. I told you I'm not freaking invincible. So if this thing by coming to my funeral, my family. But every last one of you, when you hear the news, where you're freaking sitting and regret inyongon yen nonk kotwa ninga do not freaking set foot. Go West Park Cemetery, because that's where God showed me if I died they would bury me. Let's go West Park. Don't you freaking set foot. You better not dare come, because you will have sat back and done nothing and watched me die at the hands of. And the reason why I'm speaking like this, there's a reason. It's because this thing has reached a point of no return now. I'm speaking like if I don't get fished out of, never mind this life, but South Africa, I will never be able to live. It's like apartheid that lingers for a century. If I don't leave the country, I will not escape the thing. I had dreams years ago. Just when I started. One of the first dreams that God showed me, dreams that showed me that could account for what was happening to me, was so disturbing I didn't even know how to understand it. I have explained that dream about 4 times all throughout the course of my ministry. It's sitting somewhere in the archives of my YouTube channel. I dreamt about a cult made up of banna babatu babantu, black men only. There wasn't a single white man, and not even one any other demographic man there. It was a cult that was being run by black men in the country. This is in 2014-15 when I got this dream. Just as I had lost everything, first year of my suffering. A cult in KwaZulu-Natal, and in particular Durban, The building at Dengi was in downtown Durban. The offices, the head offices of this cult was in downtown Durban, not far from Koperia, where it is that a whole bunch of very powerful black men from across the country met. It's their head offices. They were from all of the 9 provinces: Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga. I could go on. Northwest Bonk. They went to Lapaya at Durban, close to Berea at downtown. The building is in downtown Durban, close to Berea. And these men in this dark room were literally planning the future of South Africa. And it had everything to do with ripping especially black women out of power. They were all black. Amidst these men were politicians, leaders, which is why I guess by Skelemsa Cyril Ramaphosa, I guess by Skelemsa Julius Malema, I guess by Skelemsa any black male politician, Angis Bonk, Angbatembi, Bonk. They are freaking working together. And it's by, that's why, despite how much laments Julius can do against the ANC, Zuma keeps getting away with murder. Cyril keeps getting away with money at Palapala. They can fight as much as they want. Pamgwe chula. Mupela ronamo. Bagakarapana bangwapane. But then they get behind closed doors and they shake hands. They get behind closed doors and they plan their next fight. They plan what they're going to say. They plan what the news are going to share. They plan what scandal is going to come out and how a person is going to get away with it, so they can all keep looking like they're freaking enemies. It's no one but black men. Black men. Not only were politicians in this meeting, but they were also entertainment industry executives. They were businessmen, so they came from both the private and public sector, and they had to be men. They were men. And they involved powerful men in this country. They would break away, and the heads of each province would then proliferate this strategy, trickle it down to their respective provinces, to their respective minions in the provinces to now proliferate this strategy. It informed what is being shared in the entertainment industry. It also informed what is the fiscal policy. What, like I said, even the scandals that come out, these celebrities, these scandals that come out, heads of state, like our presidents, our presidency, our leadership, even in the situation near Eskom, y'all, guys, as in this load shedding stuff, like all the scandals of the country, all the issues that we could ever endure as a nation, they were planning how in the world to unfold them. It's like their intention was to destroy the country and rebuild it in their own image, like a Hegelian dialectic. That's why that's why people are sitting on my chest. That's why I'm going nowhere. That's why my ministry is like, that's why I'm enduring binary code. I'm in danger. And this thing is going to inevitably result in my suicide if I am not snatched out of the country that is South Africa in totality. I let you guys know some time ago that this nation in the tribulation, not tribulation, but in the future, God is going to seize South Africa as a country from being a nation at all. He has completely rejected it because it is imploding in his face and it has suffocated saints. It is killing his church, and he will have nothing anymore to do with it. This nation is not anything to be written home about at all in the sight of God. I told you that so much so has God written South Africa off that he doesn't regard me as South African, but as Israeli. I told you that countries that blaspheme God and hate him at this nth degree, he writes them off altogether from his sight, and the people belonging to them, he gives them Israeli nationality. This nation has concocted a strategy to recreate a patriarchy by absolutely shattering and devastating women, and in particular black women, because they're the ones that they can get to first. This cult, the intention of it was to weaken the strength of the black girl by taking away careers from as many black women as they could. As many black women as they could, they would ruin their careers. And then those, basically they're targeting them from youth, right? Others they rip from careers, like Nabang Totsi slapping in the middle of Uksebenza. They are trying to keep us out of universities, but they know that they are going to look really bad if they take everybody out. So they're letting black women continue to study, and they're letting black women continue to work. But they are saying there are conditions for you to gain your strength. If you want to keep on growing from strength to strength, these are the things you have to settle for. The epidemic of us not getting married, having children out of wedlock, they're insisting on it. The epidemic of us having babies with boyfriends that make lofty promises, and then we give birth and then they are just there to pay child maintenance. It's another strategy to weaken us. They want us angry, they want us frustrated, and they want us therefore incoherent. They want us fighting so feverishly what they are that we will just end up being reduced to nothing but that very typical stereotype of ours, angry black woman. They are trying to get us ignored by the world because we are typical. They're trying to make us baby mamas of many children, but without either responsible or reasonable husbands, or without husbands at all. They are trying to create a strengthened man that has multiple baby mamas in these streets and multiple wives, so as to weaken even some of the most strongest of women. This cult, like I said, it happened in this building, KwaZulu, right? The men then were tasked to recruit women who would not know what the true strategy against the country was. These women were only given a portion of the information. So it would be like if they were Freemasons, the women would be like 3rd or 4th degree Masons, while these men were 33rd degree. Like they went all the way up. And then they went and they recruited women into these cults, but at lower degrees. There is no woman that is sitting at the most highest echelon of this cult. They knew that in order to fulfill the strategy, they needed women. So I saw a whole bunch of chunky black women. In other words, materially chunky. And these women were to be set up as members of parliament. These women were to be set up as leaders of organizations, that they would run businesses that they would allow leave to thrive. They would never come at them with sorcery. Everything they touched, they would be like Midas. It would turn into gold. These women would end up being what would be the tantamount of business moguls in the country. They would be the ones that all the little girls are looking up to, saying South Africa has actually arrived, it has come and done a beautiful thing. Because look, sisters can do it for themselves. Women can be strong. Women can be, you get my point. And these women would be the pinnacle and the example. But these women would be fool's gold. These women would be a mirage, because these women would be that which young women aspire to be, but that young women would never be. They have a determination to set young women up for so much failure that despite longing to end up like this chosen woman, they would never get there. But this chosen woman would always be the false dream that all the other women have. So they choose a couple of women to be strong, to be CEOs, to be executives, these guys, the women that were chosen in this capacity, they were like matrons in either a prison or like, you know, mama from Chicago. When you're stroking mama, mama stroking you. These women were like mama. All the women that mama is dealing with are in prison. Mama herself is in prison, but she's not sure. She is in prison unawares to herself. Let me go get my power bank. Mama, or Queen Latifah, in the movie Chicago, was in and of herself a prisoner. So she wasn't free. Mara, she was the boss lady of all the women in South Block Tango. She was the boss lady of all the women in the prison in the movie Chicago. These women had a mama disposition about them. They were there to basically head other women that they would then recruit. And these women of which would then be duped into believing that they're part of some kind of a women's empowerment drive. This mama person was sitting as the head matron in a sewing factory. Like these women were seamstresses. Why did the Lord use a sewing factory? My grandmother used to be a seamstress. She, however, was provided for comprehensively by my grandfather. The house could never be paid by my grandfather. So the house could never be paid by my grandmother's little salary from sewing hats. And that job of sewing, being a seamstress, is very typically a female job. This woman was the head master of a whole bunch of seamstress women that thought that this woman helped them along in their career. Yet, what is rather true is that these women were maintained lowly, albeit unbeknownst to themselves. They had no awareness of the fact that even though they look like they've got jobs, they don't, because they're not where they're supposed to be. And there are also barriers to entry, and these women that mama was overseeing were the only ones that could be allowed to be maintained in employment. So yes, it's all of you project managers. Yes, it's all of you business analysts. Yes, it's all of you career women with your 1-2 bedroom departments. You are being monitored and kept at a certain level so as to never be wealthier than your husbands, wealthier than your boyfriends, so that you can start a business and struggle for it to get off the ground, but find relief in the fact that at least your husband is a multimillionaire. That's what they're doing to women. They're keeping you project managers content with salaries of 45,000 rands a month, refusing, however, to let you have businesses that are running into the multi-millions, and only those that are chosen to be matrons, mamas, are allowed to have big fat chunky businesses. Yes, of course, there are women that are able to start their own businesses without joining cults and whatnot, but there are so many women planted all over South Africa that are, and these women are protected, hedged in by Jesus Christ. There are so many, however, there are so many powerful women that you look at that you think, oh, this here is my role model, who behind them is a fever of a cult that has put them in a position to lead all other women and to restrict the movement of women. However, in a way that these women are not going to see. They will keep giving you jobs and promotions, but it will never be where you could be. It'll never be what you could do. And when you start to try to break out and start your own business, you will struggle with clients. You will struggle with this and that until you go back to your little job as a partner in a law firm, until you go back to your little job as a program manager earning 60,000 rands a month, like proper. You think that you've got a healthy salary. But in this dream, it was clear that while you're busy collecting 60K a month in a salary, you could be raking in 5 million rand in revenue every month from your business. That is what is being blocked. These men saw, they woke up, they discovered, they realized one day that Labafazi Yar men, they're powerful, they're strong, they're smart. But we cannot allow the nation to pop up out of the woodworks a whole bunch of really powerful women at our expense. Tina, as black men, you know how on the come up Niazi black women, when we were growing up, all these random lackluster boyfriends of ours, how you would skyrocket and walk past them in your career. Muthanza do to go call centering, and I gather a dust as an administrator, and I gather a dust to go mail room while you keep on going from strength to strength. The boyfriend you had when you were in high school wearing school uniform, while he was picking you up, go school. You start working, next thing, you're like 10,000 kilometers ahead of him. These men made an observation of this and were like, it needs to be stopped. Instead of working harder and pulling their socks up, they made a decision that we're going to make women at our mercy. We're going to rescue them. We're going to rip careers from. I was basically, as Karabo says, Hlongwane, I was not supposed to stay unemployed. I wasn't supposed to stay unemployed. I'm a fluke. I'm a mistake. What I am is a bad batch of dough. They feel like they need to throw me out. They want to throw me in a furnace because I didn't bake right. I was supposed to, after a year of struggling, after 2 years, accommodate some married men who put madlesa that would set me up in a business, that would hook me up with a job in the company that he is a general manager at. That's what was supposed to happen. They are trying to make women career whores. I was supposed to have a child, and then only they'll give me an opportunity to work. I was supposed to. Women don't even realize that when they're made to be so envious against women until they destroy their careers, that what they're doing over here is rather ending their own lives, shooting themselves in the foot. I was supposed to be restored to a job, to a career, to a life, but only by a man. I was supposed to get rescued by a man, but Christ would have nothing to do with it. My Christianity came in the way. My faith was the problem. The fact that I only have one Messiah, his name is Jesus, that became the issue. So they made a decision from long ago, because I kept on sharing this dream on YouTube. That's why my YouTube channel has been shadow banned for 10 years. I shared this dream. I was like, there's a cult in KZN, go KwaZulu, go Durban in particular, go Pelapiri, and they have branched out into all of South Africa. And their intention is to utterly shatter the black strength in black women and only concentrated in men. But I said that there are consequences, ramifications to this cult that they did not sign up for. And among those consequences has been gender-based violence. It created hostile men. It created entitled boys. It made boys slap girls in clubs. It made boys chop up the bodies of their girlfriends and burn them and have them found in a dumpster. It made men hang women 8 months pregnant on trees. It made men rape women in post offices and then burn their bodies. It caused men to become so violent because what they used in order to achieve this was black magic. They also went out and recruited. I recall I said that the cult is in KZN. However, they are branched out across all our provinces. The ones who head the entire province would then go and recruit young men from high schools, young men from universities, young men in corporates, and they would offer them futures in order for them to continue to sabotage women in the offices where they work. And that's why these guys change on us. That's why they go awry. That's why our boyfriends start out good with us and then later on they change. They keep on getting recruited. And then once you have recruited 1 million, this million is then going to influence abangan bakhe and then start to send out business cards and invite in. My ex-boyfriend changed on me overnight because one of these boys called him into this overarching cult. This misogynistic cult that hates abafazi. That's why in high school they start out alright. That's why they're good peoples. That's why you study with them at varsity. You are cool. And then one day he's got a whole man thing about him. He's got a whole chauvinism thing about him. He's got a whole thing about him that is giving, you're just a woman. Whereas he never used to have that. However, the thing about misogynists is that they're weird that way. They hate women yet they like having sex. So they will keep on jollaring with us, putting babies in our stomachs, but they will never ever treat us right. They're lovers. Not only that, it's a cult where it is that they're trying to strengthen manhood, so men are out just sleeping with men. Each other. They are spreading diseases across South Africa through these sex rituals that they do in these types of cults. The matrons, the mamas that are hired to basically oversee women who in and of themselves are unaware that they are in an overarching prison. The women who would break out of their clutch and decide to do a different thing. I remember in my dream, one of the women left this room where everybody was busy sewing garments to go outside and do her own thing. She fell to her death because the building was dangerous. It was not under construction, but it was not fully done. It's like trying to walk, like imagine walking on the 30th floor of a building, of a skyscraper, and there is a broken, like what is this, and the one level they haven't put like cement on the floor. It's a hole that you can just fall into, to the 29th floor, and then the 28th floor, and then the 27th, and you only land on the 26th floor. It had those kinds of architectural errors in it, such that women who exited this room, whenever they got out, they would just fall to their death because of the ill-built building that we were in. So the women who were smart, which I ended up being in my dream, ended up walking on the walls like this, staying close to the wall so that they could hold on to something. And this dream would then morph into my old high school, and the only classroom that was available out of a high school was not geography, not history, no, not accounting, not mathematics, but home freaking economics. There was a subject in my high school called home ec, where women were taught how to sew, how to bake, how to cook, how to do whatever. The only class that you could attend in my whole entire high school was home ec as a woman. Basically, they're saying we need to make more homemakers out of women. We need to take more of them out of careers, and those that are in careers, they have to be monitored, and only a small remnant of them will be allowed to fly like a bird without compromising themselves. The rest of them are going to sleep with us. The rest of them are going to be our nyatzis. The rest of them are going to forget about their principles. The rest of them are going to their etc.